Here's a new Byte. The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening on the Nintendo Switch is so good, and it's still not worth it. Let me explain. So I reviewed Link's Awakening on Sunday with a post on thenewbar.com where I'll let you know what I think about the game, where some issues are, what's actually good about it, but I still felt like I wanted to also do a video about it. So this is like a miniature review, and the full extent of it, of course, can be seen on thenewbar.com. And in case you didn't see that, of course, follow our Twitter, for example, at thenewbar to not miss any new posts that we do. Why do I say this? Why do I think Link's Awakening is so good and at the same time I still wouldn't recommend it? It's very simple. It actually comes down to what Link's Awakening is on the Nintendo Switch. It has been ported over by the developers called Grezzo, which also did ports from the Nintendo 64, for example, from Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, and other titles like Luigi's Mansion, for example, and ported them over to the 3DS. And that's what they're actually really good at. They're really cool ports from cold store titles on the 3DS, a small handheld, which is on its own not that powerful, but it is definitely cool to have on the go. And with the Nintendo Switch, this is basically the next generation of handheld mode, especially since it can switch over to the TV station where you can also play it on the big screen. My problem with that now is that Link's Awakening, with the graphical enhancements, the orchestral soundtrack, which has so many nice little things, and of course the gameplay improvements, where for example the sword slash, running, and of course other abilities are automatically bound or have its own key bindings next to only a few items that you need to swap around now compared to the original title. I personally think it's still not worth it, because at the core of the game, even with the new dungeon creation mode, or challenge mode basically, where challenges are created for you and you have to fill, for example, the grid with different dungeon levels that you found, it's just not worth it overall. It's still the same game as the Game Boy release back in 1993. Although it has colors, so I'd say 1998, I guess. It's what annoys me when I look at Nintendo and their fundings and the possibilities that they could do with a Link's Awakening remake on the Nintendo Switch, where they could utilize, for example, the motion controls, the HD rumble to do different things. There's hidden objects in the world. You don't find them just based on, for example, vibration, with the HD rumble, for example, and different other things, but also, of course, clues in the world. With the Link's Awakening title, it is basically the same thing. They're like back in the Game Boy version. You all need to watch the surroundings of an area and maybe hope that you can actually find on accident, sometimes even a seashell. In the dungeons itself, the key feature of Link's Awakening, you know, the thing that you actually try very hard to go through and play through, they're the same like on the Game Boy version, which on its own speaks for a great remaster, where it's just the same thing ported over with nicer graphics. But in its initial core, I think it's rather sad almost to see like such a big budgeted title. At least we paid for it as if it was like a AAA title, 60 euros, and then basically getting just a Game Boy game on the Nintendo Switch. That's basically my biggest gripe on it. It is a 60 euro title on the Nintendo Switch, which is basically a Game Boy game. And the new dungeon mode is not enough. That there's some issues with the frame rate sometimes, which are not that serious, they're not that bad, but they're still annoying enough that I stumble over them and mention them in this video. That leads me to actually saying, if you would ask me, hey, would you recommend that game? I'd say, this is a title that I would not rave about. This is not a title that I would recommend to my friends to play right now. Because for the same money, you get so much more in Breath of the Wild, so much more adventure, so much more for the Nintendo Switch, that I think Link's Awakening is not a Nintendo Switch title. It is a Nintendo Switch Lite title, which also released on September 20th alongside of Link's Awakening. Because think about it, none of the cool features the Nintendo Switch does, besides, you know, being able to play both on TV or in handheld mode, are really utilized here. This is a Game Boy game, which is already a handheld first and only game brought over to the Nintendo Switch. And the Nintendo Switch Lite does not utilize any of these features as well. It does not have HD rumble, doesn't have motion controls, and there's definitely room for at least some things that you could play around with. You know, the fishing game, for example, and other things. Even like the crane where you put around these controls. You could make the motion controls sensitive, where you say, okay, I have my right control and right hand and say push forward, so the crane goes forward, and to the right, so it goes right. None of that is in the game, because everything can be played as if it is only available on Nintendo Switch Lite. That's why I would say, okay, The Nintendo Switch Lite is a console that specifically costs only $200. It's a little bit cheaper than the current version that you can buy for Nintendo Switch, which already is in its second generation. And I would expect something like Link's Awakening also to be like a smaller version compared to Breath of the Wild, which is like the full title, which uses all of the cool features. And you'll know that is basically what it comes down to. It's a great game for the Nintendo Switch Lite. It is not really that much of a great game for Nintendo Switch because it doesn't really use much of it. Other than that, it's definitely worth playing. It's definitely a great remaster. But really, I want you to wait for another one. And that was the new Byte of the day. Hope you liked it, and let us know, of course, in the comments down below what you think about it. I actually have made a poll on the top left to want to hear what you think about it. Do you think Link's Awakening should have cost the €60 that it does right now, or should you think it would be a better price title if it was, for example, €40 or the equivalent for your country? I really would love to know. And let me know in the comments down below as well if you have a longer comment on this matter. Alright, that's it. Thank you so much for watching. That was a new Byte. I hope you liked it, and I'll host this. I'm out, and I see you soon. Bye bye.